Martin Scorsese is known as one of the best movie directors ever. He made famous movies like Taxi Driver and The Wolf of Wall Street. His movies changed how American movies were made. But when he's making movies, Scorsese is a perfectionist and gets really angry when people don't do exactly what he wants. He worked really well with actors like Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio, but not every actor got along with him or earned his trust. Some actors got fired for being too fake, others for being too crazy, and some for trying to argue with his ideas while making the movie. Scorsese once said, "Making movies is about what you put in the picture and what you leave out." For 6 actors, what was left out was his approval, and it hurt their careers more than they ever thought it would. This is the top 6 actors Martin Scorsese really hated working with. In all of Martin Scorsese's career, few fights between a director and actor have been as interesting or as weird as his feud with Mark Wahlberg during The Departed in 2006. What started as a partnership neither really wanted quickly turned into a big fight. Each man wanted completely different things for how one character should act on screen. From the very beginning, Wahlberg didn't want to do it. While most actors would have done anything for a role in a Scorsese movie, Wahlberg said years later, "Marty called me up, and he was so excited about making this movie together. I said, 'I'm not doing the movie.'" He admitted he was pretty angry when he finally agreed to do it. He didn't like the script and thought he wasn't right for the part. But Scorsese saw something special in him. "Mark had this tough guy energy, this street smarts I wanted for Dignam," Scorsese later told a group of directors. "But he fought me on what the character was thinking and feeling inside." From the start, the two men fought. Wahlberg wanted to make up his own lines and use his Boston attitude in the role. Scorsese wanted him to be more controlled. He kept saying, "less, less," when everything about this guy screamed, "more," a crew member remembered. The fighting became obvious during Wahlberg's swearing-filled office scenes. They had to do the same scenes over and over because Scorsese wanted it to be subtle, while Wahlberg wanted it to be loud, fast, and really intense. The fights weren't just about the movie. They became personal. At one point, Scorsese complained about his messy haircut, which Wahlberg wouldn't cut because he was also making another movie called Invincible at the same time. His rude response was, "I don't give a fuck, her." But here's the funny part about their fight. Wahlberg's performance as Sergeant Dignam, which came from all that constant fighting, got him his only Academy Award nomination. The performance that Scorsese found so hard to control ended up being the one that got the most awards attention from the whole cast. The director was reportedly shocked that Wahlberg's work, not DiCaprio's or Damon's, got the Oscar nomination. Still, the fighting left hurt feelings. When Scorsese was planning Shutter Island and The Wolf of Wall Street, Wahlberg's name never came up in serious talks about casting. The director even told a group of NYU students, "Sometimes an actor gives you exactly what audiences want rather than what the character needs." Many people thought this comment was aimed right at Wahlberg. Wahlberg was honest in return. He admitted, "Marty and I were constantly in this struggle. I had problems with Marty, but he never completely burned bridges," publicly praising Scorsese as a master director, even suggesting ideas for a Departed sequel with himself as the main character. So, did the feud ever end? Not really. Both men kept things professional, never calling each other names in public. But the creative tension between them was never fixed. They moved on, both becoming big names in Hollywood, but they never came back to work together again. Today, their fight exists less as bad blood and more as a strange puzzle. Two men who fought so hard that it created one of the most memorable performances of Wahlberg's career, but also made sure they would never work together again. Martin Scorsese has always been a director who wants complete control. To him, making movies is like conducting music. Every line, every pause, every movement in the picture has to work toward one single vision. He demands total focus, not making things up as you go. Real acting, not chaos. And when an actor challenges that order, big fights happen. James Caan was one of the few who dared to challenge him. Fresh off his star-making role as Sonny Corleone in The Godfather in 1972, Khan had an energy that was wild, magnetic, and sometimes explosive. It was exactly what Scorsese thought he needed for Italian-American, a rough character study set in New York's Little Italy that he was developing in the mid-1970s. There was something dangerous about Jimmy, Scorsese later admitted in a film magazine. He had this realness I wanted, but he also had ideas about the character that completely went against my vision. At first, working together seemed promising. Two men at the top of their creative powers working on a project that could have been legendary. But from the very first rehearsals, the tension was impossible to ignore. Khan, known for his natural approach, began rewriting dialogue during practice, throwing lines away and replacing them with his own. To Scorsese, this was like destroying something sacred. He wasn't shaping the film anymore. It felt like Khan was trying to wrestle it away from him. Crew members who saw the clash described Scorsese's reaction as explosive. Voices got loud, papers went flying. For a director who loved structure, Khan's improvisation felt like an attack. Khan didn't see it that way. Years later, he told The New Yorker, he wanted improvisation, but only his kind of improvisation. There's creative freedom, and then there's whatever the hell that was. That line summed up their whole disconnect. For Scorsese, freedom meant controlled spontaneity, moments that felt alive but still served the plan he had carefully made. For Khan, freedom meant tearing down the plan completely and seeing what happened. The divide couldn't be fixed. Within weeks, the project fell apart. Publicly, Scorsese said it was due to creative differences. Privately, he was more blunt. He told close friends that Khan was impossible. The actor's fire, so exciting on screen, had burned away any chance of working together. Both men went on to amazing careers, Khan with roles in Thief, Misery, and a lifetime of tough guy characters. Scorsese with Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and movies that redefined American cinema. Yet, they never worked together again. Not a reunion, not a second chance, not even a whisper of making up. In truth, their feud was less about ego and more about different ways of thinking. Scorsese believed movies were a director's medium where vision ruled everything. Khan believed the actor's instincts could reshape the truth in real time. One prized control, the other chaos. And when those two forces collided, neither gave in. The result was one of Hollywood's great what-ifs. What if James Caan had starred in a Scorsese film? What if their explosive energy had actually made it to the screen? Instead, their collision remained behind closed doors, a creative explosion that ended as quickly as it began. To this day, their brief but fiery encounter lives in Hollywood stories, not because of what they created together, but because of what they never did. Martin Scorsese has always demanded complete surrender to his vision. To him, period films aren't just costumes and sets. They are lived experiences down to how an actor breathes while wearing a corset. Being real, even if it was uncomfortable, was the price of truth. Julia Roberts, on the other hand, came into the early 1990s as Hollywood's biggest star, America's sweetheart, with a bright screen presence that could make even the darkest movies feel lighter. When her name came up for the role of Countess Ellen Olenska in The Age of Innocence in 1993, it seemed at first like a perfect match. Roberts's brightness paired with Scorsese's careful historical vision. She had this glowing quality that could have worked beautifully, Scorsese admitted years later in a film magazine. But even in those early meetings, he sensed trouble. There was a modern feeling I couldn't train out of her. The breaking point came not on a movie set, but in a dressing room. As Roberts tried on the stiff, choking corsets of 19th-century high society, she questioned Scorsese's demand that she suffer through the discomfort during rehearsals. To her, it seemed unnecessary. To him, it was essential. Roberts later recalled the moment, hinting at Scorsese without naming him directly in a Hollywood Reporter interview. He wanted me to literally not breathe properly to understand the character. Method directing, I guess you'd call it. From Scorsese's perspective, this wasn't method acting. It was reality. To play Ellen Olenska, he believed an actor needed to feel the restrictions of that time period to truly understand the physical repression that shaped the character's emotional world. For Roberts, whose acting instincts relied on intuition and emotional accessibility, the demand felt like fakeness. The final straw came during a tense conversation about Ellen's cultural background, where Scorsese reportedly pushed Roberts to approach the character with more studied detachment. Roberts resisted, leaning toward empathy and vulnerability instead. The meeting ended in silence. Days later, Roberts withdrew from consideration. What might have been a historic collaboration quickly dissolved into one of Hollywood's most whispered near misses. Insiders described it as less a personal feud than a clash of different ways of thinking. Two artists whose methods simply couldn't coexist. Still, the story spread through industry circles as a warning about Scorsese's uncompromising demands. Years later, Scorsese himself explained the split in an interview with the New York Times. In period pieces, I need actors who can disappear into another time, not ones who make other times feel like our own. Roberts, for her part, has never publicly said bad things about Scorsese. Her comments remain measured, even playful, but they carry the undertone of frustration, the sense of a director who demanded too much precision at the expense of humanity. The two never worked together again. Roberts went on to win her Oscar with Erin Brockovich, while Scorsese eventually realized his vision of The Age of Innocence with Michelle Pfeiffer in the role, a choice that in his mind preserved the authenticity he demanded. The silence between them is telling. No reunions, no second chances, no late career reconciliation, just a single failed attempt that revealed the gap between Scorsese's obsession with historical truth and Roberts's instinct for emotional immediacy. If there's one thing Martin Scorsese has never tolerated, it's compromise. To him, cinema isn't just storytelling. It's digging deep, a relentless search into the hidden structures of power, repression, and desire. Every detail matters, every breath matters, and if an actor resists that vision, the clash can be huge. Winona Ryder discovered this firsthand on The Age of Innocence in 1993. Cast as May Welland, the delicate society bride whose quiet manipulations steer the story's emotional currents, Ryder seemed perfect on paper. She had that glowing quality, the angelic innocence that could make an audience believe in May's purity. But Scorsese saw something sharper in the role, an undercurrent of calculation, a ruthlessness hidden beneath lace and manners. Winona had this shining quality that worked beautifully on camera, Scorsese later admitted in a film magazine. But she fought me on May's internal calculation, the character's awareness of what she was doing to Newland and the Countess. The tension got worse during one of the film's most important scenes, the Vanderbilts' engagement party. Scorsese reportedly stopped production for nearly 6 hours, demanding a subtle shift in Ryder's performance, the look of innocence layered over quiet control. Script supervisor Martha Pinson recalled the atmosphere. These were two titans. He wanted something so specific. This perfect combination of Victorian propriety masking ruthless emotional warfare. Winona wanted to humanize May, to find her vulnerability. Martin saw that as undermining the character's power. It became a battle of philosophies. Ryder leaned toward empathy, wanting the audience to see May as a fragile woman trapped by her time. Scorsese wanted May to be a strategist in silk gloves. Production designer Dante Ferretti described the grueling standoff. Martin would whisper to her for 20-30 minutes between takes. She would emerge red-eyed only to hear again after the camera rolled. Crew members later said the atmosphere grew heavier with each day, especially during the emotionally difficult third act. When May reveals her pregnancy, a moment Scorsese demanded Ryder play not with softness, but with quiet triumph. Ryder delivered. Her performance earned her an Academy Award nomination, but the price was visible. She appeared drained in press interviews and, tellingly, she was absent from the film's commentary track and most of its promotional material. For Scorsese, the ordeal left scars, too. Years later, when asked if he would ever work with Ryder again, he responded with unusual brevity. Winona is brilliant at certain qualities. May Welland required something else entirely. Ryder, for her part, has never spoken harshly about Scorsese. Instead, she has occasionally hinted at the weight of the experience. In one interview, she alluded to Directors who confuse suffering with depth, a line many insiders interpreted as a veiled reference to the age of innocence. The distance between them has remained absolute. Despite Ryder's continued success, she has never been invited back into Scorsese's world. As the director once confessed to longtime collaborator Sandy Powell, sometimes the process of reaching a great performance is so difficult that you can't imagine repeating it, even when the result works on screen. In the end, their collaboration produced art, but cost trust. For Scorsese, Ryder was too instinctive, too modern in her vulnerability. For Ryder, Scorsese's demands were suffocating, stripping away the humanity she wanted to protect. Martin Scorsese has built his reputation on control. To him, cinema is an orchestra and he is the conductor. Every note, every pause, every frame calibrated with precision. Improvisation has its place, but only within boundaries he sets. Jim Carrey, by contrast, has always thrived in chaos. His genius lies in spontaneity, in the explosive, unpredictable spark that turns a line into lightning. From The Truman Show to Man on the Moon, Carrey proved he could mix comedy and drama. But his process was never about restraint. It was about freedom. So when their worlds collided in 1999, it was almost inevitable that sparks would fly. Carrey was briefly attached to Scorsese's long-developing Howard Hughes biopic, what would later become The Aviator. At the time, the project was envisioned as a darker, more psychological study of Hughes's decline. Scorsese saw potential in Carrey's manic energy. Jim has this manic energy that could capture Hughes's brilliant eccentricity, he told Premiere magazine, but it needed to be channeled very specifically. That specificity became the problem. According to production designer Dante Ferretti, who was present at a character workshop in Scorsese's New York office, Carrey arrived armed with improvisations, physical transformations, and bold ideas for how Hughes should be played across different stages of his life. At first, it was dazzling, but the more Carrey pushed, the more Scorsese retreated. The room's temperature seemed to drop with each minute, Ferretti later recalled. The breaking point came when the discussion turned to dialogue. Carrey wanted to explore, rewriting lines, discovering moments in the moment. Scorsese wanted precision. Every word mattered. Every pause mattered. Improvisation was chaos. There are two kinds of brilliance in acting, Scorsese reportedly told his producing partner Barbara DeFina afterward. Jim's is undeniable, but it's not compatible with my process. Carrey, never one to lash out publicly, reflected years later on the experience with a kind of quiet grace. In a 2015 interview, he remarked, "Sometimes the greatest gift is a door that remains closed." It was his way of acknowledging that not every collaboration is meant to happen, no matter how much talent is on both sides of the table. The project soon stalled. Carrey moved on to Bruce Almighty. Scorsese reconceived The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio, who gave him the discipline, control, and precision he demanded. The rest is film history, and yet the clash between Scorsese and Carrey remains one of Hollywood's great what-ifs. It wasn't a feud born of ego or insult. It was a philosophical divide. Scorsese needed total immersion into his world. Carrey created universes of his own. To this day, the two men remain respectful but distant. Scorsese has praised Carrey's talent, calling him a singular artist, but he has also been clear. My films require actors who can fully inhabit my world. For Carrey, the silence is answer enough. He knows Scorsese never betrayed him. He simply couldn't bend. And perhaps for two artists defined by conviction, that was the only possible outcome. When Martin Scorsese was still a rising name in the early 1970s, long before he became the giant of American cinema, he set his eyes on one of the hottest actors of the era, Dustin Hoffman. Fresh off The Graduate and Midnight Cowboy, Hoffman was the face of restless youth and alienated outsiders. The very qualities Scorsese wanted for a dark new project called Taxi Driver. Scorsese's first choice for Travis Bickle wasn't Robert De Niro. It was Hoffman. But the meeting between the two men became the stuff of Hollywood legend for all the wrong reasons. Hoffman later recalled the encounter with disbelief. "I remember meeting Martin Scorsese. He had no script, and I didn't even know who he was. I hadn't seen any of his films and he talked a mile a minute, telling me what the movie would be about. I was thinking, what is he talking about? I thought the guy was crazy. Crazy. That was the word Hoffman chose to describe one of cinema's greatest visionaries. For Scorsese, the rejection cut deep. He saw in Hoffman a raw intensity that could have electrified Travis Bickle. But he also saw an actor unwilling or unable to trust him. Years later, in a rare comment to a colleague, Scorsese admitted, "Dustin Hoffman had the talent, no question, but he wanted safety. I was asking for danger. That danger was exactly what Hoffman couldn't stomach. To him, Bickle was too alien, too morally corrosive. He couldn't connect with the darkness Scorsese was demanding." Hoffman turned down the role, choosing instead to star in All the President's Men and Marathon Man in 1976, both critical and commercial successes. Meanwhile, Scorsese turned to Robert De Niro. The result was one of the most iconic performances in film history, complete with the immortal improvised line, "You talking to me?" A line and a role that Hoffman would forever be linked to only as the man who said no. Hoffman himself would later confess regret. "I made so many dumb mistakes turning down movies." The list is endless, he told Digital Spy in 2007. Taxi Driver was one of them. Scorsese, however, never looked back. For him, the refusal only confirmed a deeper truth. Hoffman was never his kind of actor. Scorsese needed collaborators who would dive headfirst into the abyss, no matter how uncomfortable or chaotic. Hoffman wanted clarity, boundaries, and control. To this day, their paths have never crossed again. Hoffman, now reflective in interviews, has acknowledged the lost opportunity. Scorsese, characteristically sharp, summed it up with one line at an NYU film seminar. "Some actors need to be protected. I need actors who can be destroyed and still keep going." It wasn't hatred in the tabloid sense. It was worse, a recognition that their worlds could never coexist. For Hoffman, Scorsese was too reckless. For Scorsese, Hoffman was too cautious, and so one of cinema's most fascinating partnerships ended before it ever began. In the end, these 6 clashes reveal just how uncompromising Martin Scorsese can be when it comes to protecting his vision. For some, the tension became legendary. For others, it was a missed opportunity that changed the course of their careers. But what do you think? Was Scorsese justified in pushing back so hard against these actors? Or should he have bent a little for the sake of collaboration? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories like this. Until next time!